おめでとうナナチ。ついに成し遂げたんですね。あなたにはたくさんのお礼が言いたい。
Bondrewd is a monster. That's the simplest way to describe him. Saying that his actions are irredeemable is an understatement. The mere idea of him is terrifying, and yet there's something about him that is oddly alluring. There's an unpredictability to him that you can't help but get interested in, which is an aspect of villainy that can feel damn near impossible to get right when creating one's own antagonist. Believe me, it's a pain in the ass. And it's why, in this episode of The Storyteller's Notebook, a series in which I analyze various storytelling techniques used by various creators in various mediums, I want to break down Made in Abyss's infamous Lord of Dawn, Bondrewd the novel, and figure out what makes him such a great villain. And yes, spoilers ahead for both the anime and the manga, as well as a content warning for graphic and disturbing imagery. For those who may not know, Made in Abyss is a manga created by Akihiro Tsukushi that was adapted into an anime of the same name, about a young girl named Riko who runs into a robot boy she names Reg in the middle of the legendary Abyss. A cavernous hole full of relics, monsters, and ruins, around which a society of explorers has sprung up to uncover all of its secrets. The story follows the pair as they go on an adventure into the Abyss to find Riko's mother, a legendary cave raider who's gone missing. Along their journey, they deal with all sorts of trials and tribulations, including the Curse of the Abyss, a strange phenomenon that affects delvers and raiders as they try to ascend the Abyss, whose effects range from simple nausea to physical deformation and death. They eventually run into Nanachi, an orphan of ambiguous gender from a foreign country who, alongside their friend Midi, was transformed into a Nairhate due to Bondrewd's experiments. And soon they all face off against the Lord of Dawn himself as he blocks their path to the 6th layer of the Abyss. On a surface level, Bondrewd, like any good antagonist, is a challenging roadblock for the children to overcome. He's intensely interested in Riko and Reg. Riko for the fact that she is an undead child born in the Abyss, and Reg for the fact that he is a living automaton, and has few qualms about kidnapping and experimenting on them for the sake of scientific discovery. His formidable strength, durability, and vast array of Abyss relics means that he's not going to be defeated through brute force alone, a point made clear by the way he shrugs off the giant scorpion trap they set up to kill him like it was nothing. Alongside that, he is able to hijack Nanachi's vision to spy on them, hindering their ability to make plans and outwit him. And worst of all, thanks to the soul slave machine Zoaholic, an Abyss relic that lets him spread his soul across multiple bodies, he is technically immortal. Even when they do manage to kill him, one of his loyal cave raiders, known as the Praying Hands, simply throws on his mask and Bondrewd returns as if nothing had happened. He's a tricky obstacle in the children's path, one that is not going to be dealt with so easily. But on a deeper level, there's something simply uncomfortable about Bondrewd. His mere presence dominates every page he makes an appearance in, with his arms often stretching beyond the panel to emphasize it. His and his raider's appearance is oddly uncanny, having the familiar makeshift stylings of a typical delver, but with an eeriness created by their masks, which twist what should be humanoid facial features into something strangely mechanical, and whose flowing robes give them a religious air that complements their unquestioning devotion to science and technology. Their appearance teeters on the edge of the uncanny valley, being recognizable as human but not quite, an uneasy feeling magnified by Bondrewd's dominant presence. But one need only look at Bondrewd's actions throughout the story to see the depths of his derangement. He almost casually tortures and experiments on orphan children to find a way to manipulate the Curse of the Abyss, turning them into horrific blobs, creatures, or even worse, cartridges. Small devices made by scraping the aforementioned orphans clean of everything except the parts of the body necessary for the Curse of the Abyss to take effect, and stuffing them into cases that pump them full of enough drugs to keep them docile. They are then connected to Bondrewd's body in such a way that it circumvents all of the pressure and pain of the curse onto these still living children, until their nervous system simply can't take it anymore. His actions are irredeemable, but do seem to be caused by the Zoaholic, which, ironically, by giving him immortality, has taken away his humanity. And yet, this demented side of his character is heavily contrasted against his parental nature. He genuinely cares about the children he's tortured for the sake of science, not only remembering each of their names, but also what they were like before he ruined them. When fighting Reg, he doesn't get angry when he's bested or outwitted, he's almost proud, and praises him for getting the upper hand. His relationship with his daughter Prushka is warm and caring. He encourages her to do her best and is there for her when she needs it. We even see how Bondrewd went to great lengths to help her survive in the Abyss, even when others encouraged him to give up on her. Likewise, Prushka cares just as much for him as he does for her, and cries when Reg kills him for the first time. There's a genuine emotional core to Bondrewd's character which only makes what he does, specifically what he eventually does to Prushka, all the more heartbreaking. I think this dichotomy can best be summed up by this panel toward the end of Volume 5, after the children manage to weaken Banju's forces enough to move forward in their journey. This image leaves us to wonder, is this a man who has been blessed with redemption and who has seen the error of his ways? Or is this a man cursed by his own ambition, forever trapped by the choices he's made? This duality as both a mad scientist and a loving father adds layers of complexity and nuance to Banju's character that makes us dig deep to try and fully understand him, and why he does the things he does. But for as interesting as Banju is in of himself, it's his similarities with Riko that I personally find to be most fascinating. Both are characters who've come back to life thanks to the power of a relic of the Abyss. Both use some kind of mechanical aid by Nanachi to help them navigate the Abyss. Both have a strong knowledge of the Abyss and its many dangers. Hell, both of them have even strapped Reg to a torture chair and experimented on him. But most importantly, both have a profound desire to reach the Abyss's bottom and uncover its secrets. They're both characters driven by ambition. This is a trait that in Riko is portrayed as a positive and almost inspiring thing. Yet, in Banju, we see the same characteristic taken to its most extreme, where such drive makes a person go to despicable lengths to accomplish their goals, and leaves both Riko and us as the audience to wonder whether such desperate measures are worth it, or even justified. In this story about children learning how harsh and cruel the world can be, Banju acts as a dark reflection of the protagonist, Riko, and subverts the ideals that she and her friends had initially aspired to. Even more disturbingly, Banju also reflects not just the world Made in Abyss is set in, but also our own, since Banju and the other White Whistles are hailed as heroes. This in itself would be twisted, with people looking up to the Lord of Dawn without realizing what he does behind the scenes. But what makes it even more questionable is that some of the White and Black Whistles, at the very least, know that something's going on. Ozen warns Riko and Reg to be wary of Banju, and Habo tells Nate and Shiggy about some of the sketchier aspects of Banju's history, and yet no one does anything about it. They let Banju carry on his business as usual because of the amazing feats that he's been able to accomplish. It's an earth-shattering revelation for Riko to find out that one of the people she'd looked up to for so long turned out to be a monster. And one that, in the real world, seems to be all too common. And it's something that has become especially relevant after the recent sexual assault and harassment claims that have come out about many celebrities in Hollywood. But as an Irish viewer, Banju's acts hit a little too close to home. As mentioned before, there's a strong religious air about Banju and his Delvers. They're called the Praying Hands, they have an almost priest-like appearance, and their base of operations, Ido Front, is set up in a former religious ritual temple. Coupled with the way Banju focuses on children, it to me seems quite reminiscent of the controversy surrounding the Catholic Church in Ireland, which were brushed under the rug for far too long. Of course, this specific interpretation is a vague one based on loose connections, and is something I doubt the mangaka specifically had in mind, but it's unnerving nonetheless. Banju's status within the world of Made in Abyss shines a light on a more sinister side of its setting, as well as a problem that is ever relevant in the real world. That is, the problem of well-regarded public figures and organizations doing morally reprehensible things and being allowed to get away with it, because of their achievements and or status within an industry or otherwise. And strengthens our engagement with the series by personifying said issue. Banju is a formidable villain, one whose thematic and emotional significance and connections to real-world problems makes him an intensely interesting character. But there's an aspect to his writing that makes him stand above a typical antagonist, and that is the fact that there's no escaping his influence. Each of the main characters in the story has been both mentally and physically scarred by him. Riko is broken by the fact that in the end, Banju turned Prushka into a cartridge, and ends up with Prushka's heart as her own White Whistle. Reg is tortured by the Praying Hands as they experiment on him, and ends up having one of his arms sliced off as a result. Nanachi was not only transformed into a Nerhate because of Banju's experiments, but was forced to watch her best friend mutate into something beyond words. And it leaves us wondering, if this is what a White Whistle on the 5th layer is like, then how twisted will the other ones be below? And more importantly, how deranged will Riko's mother be down at the very bottom of the Abyss? Banju's influence on the story lingers long after we and the children have moved on from him. Banju's duality as a madman and a father figure, coupled with his immense ambition, acts as a dark reflection of the story's characters that forces us to reconsider the world we've gotten so attached to, and whose impact on the story and its characters is tangible. He shows that a great villain isn't just an interesting obstacle for a protagonist to overcome, but should act as a deeply complex and morbidly fascinating reminder of all the parts of ourselves and the world around us that we'd rather keep behind closed doors. And yeah, those are my thoughts. Tell me what you think. If you agree, disagree, who your favorite villain is, why you think makes a good villain, etc. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, check out my last video where I talk about Violet Evergarden and why its slow pacing and emotional storytelling makes it so fun to watch. Or check out the last episode of The Storyteller's Notebook where I break down RWBY Volume 5's fight scenes and see what they get horribly wrong and fantastically right. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to come fly with me. You can also follow me on Twitter for more updates about this channel and other stuff, and hopefully, I'll see you later.